you over there, I see you struggling with the numbers, but don't have no fear, cause I'm right here. We're gonna grow and learn together, there's no need to despair. Math cool like breeze, I can learn it with ease, so leave your concerns because it's time to learn.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. For this video, we'll be looking at our fourth math operation called division, and the result we get when we divide numbers by 10, 1, and 0. Now, if you recall, last week we looked at multiplication and how it's related to addition, right? Well, division is the opposing operation to multiplication, similar to how subtraction opposes addition. Division is actually a shortcut for subtraction. Here's what I mean. If I ask how many groups of 3 can I subtract from 15 until I get to 0, we would say 15 minus 3 is 12, so that's one group. 12 minus 3 is 9. 9 minus 3 is 6. 6 minus 3 is 3. And finally, 3 minus 3 is 0. So in total, we had to subtract 5 groups of 3. Now, if we had bigger numbers, say starting with 100, how many groups of 5 do we have to subtract until we get to 0? That would take us a long time, right? So instead, we can think of separating 100 into groups of 5, and we write it as, this reads 100 divided by 5, and can mean a number of things. Number 1, if we keep subtracting 5 from 100, how many groups of 5 would it take to get to 0? Number 2, if we separate 100 into groups of 5, how many groups of 5 will there be? And number 3, how many groups of 5 make up 100? In other words, how many groups of 5 do we add together to get 100? All of these 3 definitions mean the exact same thing. So whenever you're looking at division, you can use whichever one you're comfortable with. In most cases, method 2 is used, but that way we don't really see how division is related to subtraction. So I just wanted to make sure that we cover all the possible ways that we can look at division. Going forward in this video, I'll stick mostly to the second definition, but just remember, there are more than one ways to understand division. Now, before we get to the actual dividing, there are a few things to remember. First up is that, like subtraction, division is not a commutative operation. This means that the order matters. And that leads me to my second point, which is that there are some terms given to each number in a division equation. So let's take a look at what they are. The number that we are dividing is called the dividend. The number that we are dividing by is called the divisor. And finally, the result is known as the quotient. Listen guys, I'm not going to lie to you. I always had difficulty remembering which term belongs to which number. But a trick you can use is if you place the terms in alphabetical order, then that will help you out because they appear in that same order for the equation. And look at English making its way into this lesson with a life-saving tip. Yay for English, guys. Oh my god, I'm so lame. Okay, I think we covered all our bases, so let's move on by looking at how to divide numbers by 10, 1, and 0. Okay, first up is dividing by 10. Now, if you haven't already realized, we're using the same examples that we used in our last video with multiplication. So let's go with 20 divided by 10. Using our second definition, we can ask ourselves, how many groups of 10 can 20 be separated into? And the answer would be 2. Now how about 50 divided by 10? Again, let's count the different groups of 10 that we can separate 50 into. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the answer would be 5. But there's a pattern. Remember, one of the first things I said was that division is the opposing operation to multiplication. So if you recall, multiplying integers by 10 means adding 0 to the end of the number. So dividing those numbers by 10 means doing the reverse. We remove 0 from the number. Now this only works, of course, for numbers with a 0 at the end. So this is actually really more like a little trick because it doesn't work for all numbers. So let's look a little bit further. Dividing a number by 10 means shifting each digit to the next smaller place value group, which can be seen by moving the decimal point one space to the left. So again, if we start with 20 and write it as a decimal, then by shifting the decimal point one space to the left, we get 2, and 2 tens has now become 2 ones. Let's try this out with a few examples. Number 1, 435 divided by 10. Writing this as a decimal, we get, then by shifting the decimal point one space to the left, we get the answer, which is 43.5. Number 2, 100.67 divided by 10. Now this is already a decimal, so we can go ahead and shift our decimal point one space to the left to get 10.067 as the answer. So just as a little recap, guys, when dividing a number by 10, if the number ends with a 0, we can get the answer by simply removing the 0. But if it does not end with 0, we will shift the decimal point one space to the left to get the answer. Next up is dividing by 1. Let's use this example. 7 divided by 1. Now again, using our second definition, this means how many groups of 1 can I separate 7 into? And the answer would be 7. Because 1 is a unit, it would take the same number of groups as the number itself. Using the first definition of division, we would have to subtract 1 the same amount of times as the number itself in order to get 0. So any number divided by 1 gives the same number as the quotient. And because of that, we say that 1 is the identity number for division. You can check our last video to find out more about identity numbers. Alright, let's move on to dividing numbers by 0. Okay, using our second definition, let's ask ourselves the question: how many groups of 0 can I divide 5 into? Okay, that not really make no sense. So, let's try definition number 1, okay? We got this, okay? How many times can we subtract 0 from 5 until we get to 0? Alright, that don't seem to be working either, because subtracting 0 from 5 is always going to leave 5, so we'll never get to 0. Guys, I'm getting a little bit desperate now, so let's try our third definition, okay? How many groups of 0 can we add to get to 5? Now this words don't make no sense, because if we keep adding 0 to 0, we'll never get to 5. Guys, this is why dividing a number by 0 gives the following solution. It's actually not possible to get an actual number. So the answer is that there is no answer. Even 0 divided by 0 cannot work. So remember that dividing any number by 0 is equal to that amount of sense. Now, this is a very powerful result. I mean, 1, it shows you that not every problem in math has a numerical solution, and sometimes realizing that you can't find an answer is the answer itself. Also, this result can be used to rule out certain numbers for equations where division is involved. Okay, let's recap today's lesson. Division can be seen in many different ways, and the dividend, divisor, and quotient are all the numbers that make up a division equation. Dividing a number by 10 can be done by removing the 0 if the number ends with a 0, or by shifting the decimal point one space to the left. Dividing a number by 1 will always result in the number itself, and finally, dividing a number by 0 makes no sense, and we write that as undefined. And that wraps up today's video. As usual, click the like button if you liked today's video. Don't forget to also comment below, subscribe, and visit my Instagram page to check out more updates for the channel as well as weekly questions related to the most recent videos. As usual, always remember to be a friend and tell a friend. Remember, we're all in this together because math is life.